The Mufasa movie is yet another example of how Disney is willing to destroy the fundaments of the plot of a classic movie in order to come up with a mediocre, pathetic plot, relying on the hard work and success of a great film made in the past by people with actual talent, only to shamelessly contradict the core aspects of its story decades later with a lame CGI prequel nobody asked for. The Lion King 1994 has been considered for the past 30 years as one of the greatest, if not the greatest Disney movie ever created. And during those 30 years, we never had reasons to wonder anything about Mufasa's early life, other than what could already be perfectly grasped and understood by the original film. For 30 years, we never had reasons to guess if Mufasa was born into nobility or not. For 30 years, we never had reasons to wonder if Mufasa was actually adopted or not. For 30 years, we never had reasons to guess if Mufasa and Scar were truly blood-related brothers or not. We didn't get tons of exposition scenes in the original film just to explain Mufasa's past. But we didn't need to, because the answers to all those questions were everywhere in the Lion King 1994 movie. Something left unchanged, even by its soulless remake counterpart. All one needed to do in order to get Mufasa's past was to simply watch the movie, and from there, we could perfectly see how Mufasa was a great and noble ruler, a clear descendant from a noble lineage of kings as he poises himself in a grand and majestic way from the very beginning, how Mufasa deeply respects and treasures the memories of the great kings of the past for many reasons, such as his late father is one of them, and also because Mufasa knows the kingdom he rules is the result of the efforts of countless of others who came before him, and how he must do everything he can to carry on the legacy and protect the kingdom entrusted to him. How the lessons he taught Simba were also the lessons Mufasa learned from his own father when he was a cub. How Mufasa's deeds are the continuity of what all previous generations of kings did to the new ones, thus continuing the transmission of knowledge, tradition, and the sacred duty of keeping their homeland safe as kings to the Pride Lands.
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope. Simba, let me tell you something that my father told me. Look at the stars. The great kings of the past look down on us from those stars.
Really?
Yes.
And it's that continuous transmission of tradition and wisdom from the older generations to the new ones, from father to son, that shows that Mufasa's role as a king is deeply connected to the theme of the circle of life. The circle of life is presented in the film as an endless chain of events, of how endings become new beginnings for the sake of eternally continuing the flow of life. The monarchy theme, mostly represented through Mufasa, walks side by side and even complements the theme of the circle of life, which is at the very core of the Lion King story, by showing how a monarch's death gives way to a new king, how a legacy lives on throughout the ages as the older generation teaches timeless values and wisdom to the younger generation, and how the younger generation will one day grow strong and take the place once occupied by the previous one, and pass on the knowledge he was taught to the ones that will come to exist in the future. And that's exactly what happens through Mufasa and Simba as father and son, as king and future king, and how the themes of circle of life and monarchy were fleshed out and developed in such a beautiful way. But all of this only makes sense if Mufasa was truly born into nobility and descends from the kings of the past all along, by taking the duty of becoming king like his father before him, which has been carried on by the kings of the past for countless ages. Mufasa allowed the circle of life to continue to flow, and the circle of life returns to function as it should once Simba takes his father's place and rises as the rightful king. Hence why the circle of life was broken when Scar disrupts the rightful lineage to the throne and becomes the king by unlawful means when he kills his own brother. It was all connected. But the Mufasa prequel movie just ignores all that and tosses everything aside in order to create a lame story of how he was actually an orphan with no blood connections to nobility or whatsoever, contradicting, undermining, and rendering meaningless all the beautiful symbolism carefully built up in the movie it's gonna be based on. When we compare the original story to the main premises of this prequel according to what was presented in the trailers, I can't help myself but notice how this prequel just pales in comparison to the beauty, power, and greatness of the original film, and how retconning Mufasa's past is nothing but a pitiful attempt to achieve something great on their own, only to miserably fail and undermine a beautiful story as a result. And as if all that wasn't enough, Scar from the 1994 movie explicitly debunks the whole thing of Mufasa being adopted by basically admitting, subtly and yet obviously, that Scar was a second-born son who strayed further from the line to the throne after Simba's birth, who is the firstborn son of his older brother Mufasa.
Well, as slippery as your mind is, as the king's brother, you should have been first in line.
Well, I was first in line. Until the little hairball was born.
That hairball is my son and your future king.
And also, considering Scar's stingy and scornful personality, wouldn't he throw in his brother's face that he was adopted as means to offend Mufasa if that truly was the case? Not to mention how everything in this movie looks terrible. The colors look painfully lifeless, the CGI animals somehow look even worse, and the dialogues were awful. If there is something that would break the circle of life and cast us into a dark, bleak era, would be the continuous production of soulless and unnecessary live-action remakes of the classic and great Disney animated movies. Bob Iger said that Disney would only make movies about stories that are worth being told, only if there was someone who could tell him that this movie is not one of them.